There's no denying that Brooke Shields is an icon. Her eyebrows alone are legendary, but the road hasn't always been easy. Here are some tragic details about the life and career of Brooke Shields. Though Brooke Shields remained close with her father after her parents divorced, it was her mother, Terry Shields, who called most of the shots. Brooke has said that dad Frank Shields, who remarried and had more children, disliked her celebrity, but Terry was the catalyst for it.
This is the face behind the face of Brooke Shields, Terry Shields.
She operated as Brooke's manager and controlled every aspect of her early career, policing her behavior and micromanaging everything from thank you notes to autographs. Her mother's codependence was difficult for young Brooke because of Terry's alcoholism. While Terry was insistent that Brooke maintain perfect manners, Brooke's mom was known for being unpredictable, angry, and harsh when drinking, even toward her daughter. Despite the emotional abuse Terry inflicted upon her, including regular body shaming, Brooke took care of her mother when she drank and defended Terry's erratic behavior and embarrassing outbursts. In a 2023 appearance on Today, Shields said, "I did my first intervention when I was 13. As a daughter, I was so busy trying to keep her alive and protect her against the world." The most startling part of the documentary Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields, is the evidence of Brooke Shields' early sexualization, both on-screen and off. It's shocking to watch what happened through a modern-day lens, and even Brooke's daughters couldn't understand the choices that were made or the way people reacted to her as a child.
You really are an exquisite-looking young lady. I know you've been told that, but isn't she a pretty girl?
The title of the documentary references the 1978 film Pretty Baby, in which an 11-year-old Brooke is shown fully nude. It created controversy at the time, but nothing like what would happen today. Preteen Brooke played a sex worker in the film, in which she kissed actor Keith Carradine, then in his late 20s. Though she said she wouldn't let her own kids do it, Brooke doesn't regret making Pretty Baby. In 2018, she told Vanity Fair, "It was the best creative project I've ever been associated with, the best group of people I've ever been blessed enough to work with." The fawning over Shields' looks by adults and the invasive questions about her sexuality intensified after she starred in a now infamous 1980 Calvin Klein campaign.
You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing.
But for Shields, one inappropriate interview stands out above the rest. Speaking with NPR, Shields remembered, "Barbara Walters on air asked me to stand up to compare our figures because she asked me what my measurements were, as if I knew my waist in inches or centimeters, you know? I was 15. The jeans ad quickly became iconic despite being banned in multiple countries and on several American networks. But at the time, Shields was unfazed. She told People, "I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it had to do with underwear. I didn't think it was sexual in nature." At 10, Shields was booked for a nude pictorial that was shot for the Playboy press publication Sugar and Spice. The images, shot by photographer Gary Gross, featured Shields naked in a bathtub, wearing heavy makeup and covered in body oil. Shields was paid $450 for the shoot. Her mother signed the consent forms. In 2009, a picture of one of the pictures was pulled from a British art exhibition after authorities said it violated obscenity laws.
Brooke's sort of like a work of art, and like any beautiful painting. I think the world should enjoy Brooke and view her.
The mother-daughter duo sued Gross in 1981 to stop the use of the photos, claiming they would damage her then thriving career. But the judge ultimately ruled in favor of Gross. Gross's team successfully argued that Shields has made a profitable career as a young vamp and a harlot, a seasoned sexual veteran, a provocative child woman, an erotic and sensual sex symbol, the Lolita of her generation. Therefore, according to Gross, his photos couldn't hurt her image. Ultimately, Shields was deemed unable to overrule the 1975 contract signed by her mother. The hypersexualized perception of Shields became an even bigger issue in 1980 after she posed for a series of anti-smoking PSAs.
If there's anything I hate, it's washing my hair and then being with people who smoke. Yuck.
A House subcommittee called a hearing on the dangers of smoking and summoned Shields to testify, but the ad campaign was pulled off the air. At the time, many suggested the Reagan administration canceled the campaign because of pressure from the tobacco industry, but Shields' ability to be a role model was also debated. Given that interviews from that time only highlight how poised and intelligent the youngster was, it's a shame that people's discomfort with her image prevented Shields from using her influence to send teens an important message. Created by the Department of Health and Human Services, the print campaign featured a 15-year-old, fully clothed Shields posing with cigarettes coming out of her ears. The text reads, "Smoking spoils your looks." After the campaign was pulled, Shields continued her anti-smoking work with the American Lung Association, filming multiple PSAs in 1981 with the tagline, "Smokers are losers." In the trailer for Pretty Baby Brooke Shields, Shields' first line cuts to the bone. The entirety of my life, it was, "She's a pretty face," over and over and over and over and over again. And that always just seared me.
After 4 years of Princeton, my professor suggested I seek higher goals.
Of course, this perception could not have been further from the truth, which Shields made abundantly clear when she enrolled at Ivy League Princeton University after high school. She attended Princeton from 1983 to 1987, graduating with honors with a degree in Romance languages. In an interview with Glamour, Shields reflected, "The ability to say I graduated with honors from this esteemed place, coming from the entertainment industry, it enabled me to have my own opinions." Halfway through her time at Princeton, Shields wrote a combination memoir and self-help book titled On Our Own, in which she confessed her virginity, which entirely altered her public image. At 22, she lost her virginity to her then-boyfriend, fellow Princeton student and actor Dean Cain. Though she ultimately excelled, Shields considered dropping out at first due to the intense homesickness she felt. She struggled to make friends because her fellow students tended to steer clear of her. Of course, she wasn't entirely left alone since the paparazzi were often on campus disguised as students. In her 2014 memoir, There Was a Little Girl, The Real Story of My Mother and Me, Shields wrote, "One photographer hid an event to photograph me walk to a class. Another attempted to bribe a Maddie college freshman to take a camera into the showers and snap me in the nude." After graduation from Princeton, Shields attempted to return to acting but struggled to find work. The slump lasted until 1994 when Shields landed the role of Rizzo in Grease on Broadway. It was during the lull in her career that Shields was assaulted by a Hollywood executive, a fact she revealed publicly for the first time in the 2023 documentary about her life. The pair went to dinner to discuss a potential movie role, or so Shields thought, so she felt comfortable accepting an offer to go back to the man's room to call a cab. It was there that he assaulted her.
My one no should have been enough. And I just thought, stay alive and get out.
In an interview with NPR, Shields said she kept quiet largely because of the executive's power in Hollywood, saying, "It would have seemed like some desperate attempt at attention and pity, and no one would have believed me. No one was believing anybody at that time. And nobody considers what it takes to go through a trial or the public scrutiny and then the victim shaming." Shields started dating tennis player Andre Agassi in 1993, around the time her career was just beginning to bounce back. By the time they got married in 1997, she was starring in her own sitcom, Suddenly Susan. The sitcom lasted for 4 years, but the marriage was over in half that time. Shields and Agassi divorced in 1999, but during their marriage, he heavily influenced the direction of her career. It was Agassi who encouraged Shields to follow her dreams of acting on stage, for example, but his allegedly controlling nature ultimately led to the failure of the marriage, and the pair haven't spoken highly of that time in the years since. Shields has publicly discussed how her memorable 1996 guest appearance on the show Friends led to a particularly violent episode in which Agassi smashed all of his trophies, including those from Wimbledon and the US Open. The scene required Shields to lick co-star Matt LeBlanc's fingers, which set the tennis pro off.
Oh, these hands, these beautiful hands. Oh, I could just eat them, but I won't.
Shields told The New Yorker, "Andre was in the audience supporting me and he stormed out. He said, 'Everybody's making fun of me. You made a fool of me by that behavior.' I'm like, 'It's comedy. What is the matter with you?' He was addicted to crystal meth at that point, so that irrational behavior I'm sure had something to do with that." In her 2014 book, There Was a Little Girl, The Real Story of My Mother and Me, Shields admitted that her feelings of regret over the marriage started the day after the wedding. Though her mom was controlling and oftentimes difficult, Shields was also very close with her for many years. It was the two of them against the world, and unless Brooke was at her father's house, she was with Terry pretty much 24/7. It wasn't until she started dating Agassi that her mother's reign as her manager ended. Shields told Good Housekeeping, "He was the one who said, 'You need to change it up. Get an agent, maybe move to California, be serious. And you need to figure out how to separate from your mom.'" Brooke fired her mother as her manager when she was 30, and it didn't go down gently. Agassi, who didn't get along with Terry, had his team clear out her office and ship the contents to his home in Las Vegas. After that, Terry would tell people Brooke had divorced her, and the two started drifting apart. They even went through periods with no contact whatsoever, due in large part to Terry's alcoholism. When asked about her mother in a 2001 interview with the Los Angeles Times, Shields replied, "I'm not quite sure of her whereabouts. Nothing I have done in the past has worked, so it's just best for me to disengage and pray for her." Suddenly Susan ran for 4 seasons from 1996 to 2000, producing 93 episodes in all. The show was set at the offices of a magazine, and as the lead character Susan Keene, Shields was on the show for the entirety of its run, along with 3 other series regulars. Actor David Strickland was a member of the core cast for the first 3 seasons of the sitcom, and he and Shields became best friends. In March 1999, Strickland was found dead in a dingy Vegas motel by a private investigator reportedly hired by Shields after he didn't show up for a court appearance on cocaine possession charges. Insiders claimed to TV Guide that the night prior, Strickland was seen drinking heavily and doing drugs. Strickland had also allegedly stopped taking medication for his bipolar disorder and was reportedly upset about his reduced role in the film Forces of Nature. In a 2023 interview with Today, Shields said, "Losing my best friend to suicide was you just don't recover really from those things."
I just never felt alone when he was around.
It's unfortunately not uncommon for celebrities of all genders to have stalkers, but young female celebrities have historically been more at risk than any other demographic. Though Shields' story isn't as extreme as some others of that era, Jodie Foster's stalker tried to assassinate a president, and Rebecca Schaefer's stalker murdered her, it's nonetheless terrifying.
But if you're Brooke, every single person you ever see already has seen you. And so people had a belief that Brooke belonged to them.
Brooke's stalker, John Rinaldi, was not only an obsessive fan, but also an alleged friend of mom Terry Shields. The pair reportedly became pals after Rinaldi began writing fan letters to Brooke. However, Rinaldi would go on to inundate the star with unwanted and unwelcome contact for decades until she finally hit her breaking point.
I did actually park in front of her house. I wrote her name on my back windshield because I was being playful.
When Rinaldi was arrested for stalking and harassing Shields in 2015, court docs stated he'd been doing so for at least 12 years. Shields had always been cordial to him in the past, despite his intrusions, including unwanted letters and social media messages, but decided to act after he spent days parked outside her home and brought her kids gifts. In 2016, Rinaldi was found guilty on both charges, but he was sentenced to only 60 days in jail. 2 years after divorcing Andre Agassi, Brooke Shields married Chris Henchy, a producer and screenwriter who, amongst other things, co-founded Funny or Die. The couple got married in a small ceremony in April 2001, then had another larger wedding a month later. The two quickly started trying for a family, but were met with fertility issues that threw them for a loop. They eventually went on to have 2 daughters. Rowan was born in 2003, and her younger sister Greer came along 3 years later, but not before years of fertility treatments and a devastating miscarriage. Shields' miscarriage happened in December 2001, and she wrote about it in detail in her book Down Came the Rain, My Journey Through Postpartum Depression. She was preparing to go on stage at a fundraiser honoring Jim Henson when she got the news that her pregnancy was no longer viable. As she was waiting in the wings to sing a duet with Kermit the Frog while dressed like Miss Piggy, Shields' doctor called with news about blood work that had been done the previous day. Shields wrote, "My doctor delicately explains that it is nature's way of saying the baby isn't strong enough to survive, and it's better to have it happen sooner rather than later." There is a pause, and then she carefully adds that I am going to have to wait for my body to naturally expel the pregnancy or reabsorb it. Shields has written a handful of books, but our favorite is the gut-wrenching Down Came the Rain, My Journey Through Postpartum Depression. The 2005 memoir is a harrowing account of Shields' struggles after the birth of her first daughter, Rowan. It's written with unflinching honesty and came out at a time when people weren't openly talking about postpartum depression. Among other things, Shields writes about how she at first lacked the desire to bond with her baby, heard voices in her head, and began to have suicidal thoughts due to her depression. In an appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Shields explained, "This gripped my heart to such an extent that I didn't even have the desire to try to overcome it. I mean, I was flattened by it. I was devastated by it. And it wasn't the baby blues." In the book and interviews, Shields has detailed how she was able to work through her postpartum depression, which included going on antidepressants. For some reason, Tom Cruise decided he should speak up about the topic despite not being a medical expert, not having suffered from the illness himself, and not being involved with Shields in any way. In a Today interview with Matt Lauer, the actor criticized the use of medication and the field of psychiatry as a whole. He labeled the discipline a pseudoscience and went after Shields.
The thing that I'm saying about Brooke is that there's misinformation, okay? And she doesn't understand the history of psychiatry.
The distasteful interview, for which Cruise later personally apologized, prompted Shields to respond by writing an op-ed in the New York Times. Though they were in and out of each other's lives over the years, Brooke was very present toward the end of Terry's life, when her drinking had devolved into dementia to the point that she needed someone to care for her. Terry's obituary in the New York Times Magazine read, "Her daughter cared for her with the same devotion she showed as a child." In the piece, Brooke is quoted as saying, "Everything in me that is creative and driven and avaricious and loves to laugh, that all came from her. She did the best she could."
When I was born, my mother, she was so afraid I was going to die, she slept with me strapped to her chest. She tried to keep me there, basically, for the rest of my life.
Terry died in 2012 at age 79. Several months later, Brooke purchased a beach home that she decorated with her mother's belongings. She immediately disliked it, sold it all to an antiques dealer, and finally freed herself from her mother's shackles. But that's not to say that she didn't mourn her mother, whom she so clearly loved and respected. Speaking at the Variety Studio at the 2023 Sundance Film Festival, Shields admitted, "You don't ever recover from losing a parent. You learn to put it in a different place in your heart. I also said goodbye to her every time she drank. She wasn't present." In January 2021, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Shields had a devastating accident that left her wondering if she would ever walk again. She was at the gym when she fell off a balance board, which propelled her up in the air. She broke her femur upon landing. She recalled the accident to People, saying, "It felt like it was all in slow motion, and then I just started screaming. Sounds came out that I've never heard before." EMTs quickly came to take her to the hospital, and though she could feel her toes, she feared something irreparable had happened. What followed was more than a year filled with harrowing procedures, unexpected complications, and daily physical therapy. Shields underwent multiple surgeries. First, 2 metal rods were inserted in her leg. Her second surgery was necessary because part of her femur popped out following the first operation. This required 5 more rods and a metal plate, so basically, Shields is going to set off every metal detector from now until eternity. She was sent home, then had to return to the hospital for a third surgery when she developed a staph infection at the site of her IV. In April 2022, Shields updated People on her progress, saying, "The bone is all healed and everything is sort of where it should be, and I don't walk with a limp anymore, but my strength is really compromised." Shields has given no health updates since, but we're hopeful the star's recovery has progressed even further. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, contact the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP 4357.